The air in the room was refrigerated, the kind that makes your skin tighten, even if you don't shiver. Brannick Heller didn't look up when I entered. He was already seated at the head of the table, hands folded like he was delivering a budget forecast. To his left was Cassandra from HR, still flipping through papers she wasn't really reading. On his right sat a man I'd never seen before, probably legal. No one greeted me. I closed the door behind me and walked to the seat opposite them. Brannick finally looked up, face blank. Dr. Thorne, he said, using my title like punctuation, not respect. Let's keep this brief. I didn't answer. I didn't nod. Your role has been reevaluated. With the final stage of the Red Helix design now complete, your position is considered redundant, effective immediately. He said it without pause, without a single word of thanks, like I was being peeled off the payroll by algorithm. Your exit packet will be sent to your personal email. Your access will be terminated at the top of the hour. The man from legal didn't speak at all. HR looked at me like she expected an outburst, but I'd rehearsed this moment in silence too many times to let them have a scene. I stood. Do you have anything to say? Brannick asked, too late and too flat. I gave a small shake of my head. No, I'm clear. Cassandra blinked, caught off guard. The legal man clicked his pen, but never wrote a thing. I turned and walked out without waiting for someone to escort me. My footsteps echoed against the concrete hallway as I passed the cluster of startup-era inspirational quotes still framed along the wall. None of them had ever aged well. Just before I reached the elevator, I passed the internal ops screen near the west stairwell, usually displaying uptime metrics and team birthdays. But the moment I walked by, it flickered once. Then in gray text against a black field, a line appeared, small, hidden under maintenance logs. Fail safe, phase 1, architect revoked. Preparing event trigger. I didn't pause. I didn't need to. By the time the elevator doors closed behind me, I already knew what would happen next. The coffee was lukewarm and tasted faintly of dishwater. The kind of cup no one sips for flavor, just ritual. I sat in the corner of Harlow's Cafe, a place I'd visited maybe 3 times in 9 years. Always empty after the morning rush. Always quiet enough to think. At 10:28 a.m., my phone buzzed once. I didn't check it immediately. I already knew what it would say. When I finally turned the screen over, the notification sat there like a quiet verdict. USPTO patent filing confirmation, Red Helix system inventor Dr. Celia Thorne status, submitted. Timestamp 10:28 a.m., no fireworks, no fanfare, just clean legal certainty. I took a breath and set the phone back down. The protocol had worked exactly as designed. It had activated the moment my internal ID was revoked using 3 silent verifications, my deactivation timestamp, a signed declaration, and an encrypted key file embedded in the system's heartbeat. All autonomous, all invisible. They had believed I'd just walk out of that room and disappear. They'd never asked how Red Helix really functioned, never cared to. What mattered to them was presentation, not origin, delivery, not authorship. I built the system to recognize absence, to see deletion not as an end but as a command. That was the condition. If the architect disappeared, the code would respond accordingly. Failsafe wasn't about revenge, it was about permanence. For months, I'd imagined this moment might feel cathartic, like justice landing with sound and spectacle. But instead, it just felt right, like placing a puzzle piece into its final slot. I looked out the window. Rain had started to spit against the glass, faint and irregular. The kind of weather people forget happened. The cafe remained mostly empty. A college kid 2 tables down was typing on a MacBook with stickers along the edge. He didn't look up. No one did. That was the irony. For the first time in years, my name was where it belonged, on record in law and out of their hands, and they didn't even know it yet. 9 years ago, there was no name, not for the system, not for me. I was brought in on a 6-month contract, no benefits, no team, no window. The workspace was a converted supply closet, half server racks, half forgotten binders. They handed me a laptop with a cracked hinge and a prototype labeled Unstable Fails every 7 minutes. That was my welcome packet. There was no roadmap, just a deadline. Red Helix wasn't called that then. It didn't have a name because no one believed it would live long enough to earn one. But I did what I always did. I started anyway. I sketched system models on printer paper, taped them to the ceiling above the cot I sometimes slept on. I coded through weekends. I remember one night when I forgot to eat for 17 hours and only noticed because my hands started to shake on the keyboard. The first time the simulation ran past 30 minutes without crashing, no one was around. I sat alone staring at the blinking cursor, listening to the hum of fans and the soft churn of the algorithm stabilizing under pressure. I whispered to the screen, "You're not supposed to work yet." But it did. Year 2 brought budget. Year 3 brought staff. They moved Red Helix to a real lab, put posters on the wall, and started using phrases like strategic breakthrough. They gave me a new title, Lead Systems Architect. It sounded grand. It came with no assistant, no promotion, and a new reporting structure that filtered all my documentation through the product office. That's when things started to vanish. Slide decks showed my diagrams, but the attributions read Team Review. Code I authored line by line was cited as collaborative build. A year later at a defense conference, I saw a Red Helix schematic blown up on a 12-foot screen presented by someone else entirely. He didn't even know what the voltage thresholds meant, but he smiled well, and they clapped. I didn't say anything, not yet. Instead, I started documenting everything. Not to fight, not yet, just to remember what they wanted to forget. Levi Dre was 24 when he joined. Brilliant in a raw, reckless way, the kind of mind that sparks fast but needs shaping. I saw it immediately. His questions weren't polished, but they were honest. I taught him how to break apart a recursive loop, how to debug a collapsed stack without panicking, how to test under constraint, not idealism. We stayed late in the early days, cold pizza and sticky notes layered on whiteboards. I covered for him when he crashed the sim server. I taught him how to write his own regression tool when the companies failed again and again. And then one day, he stopped asking how something worked and started asking how it would look. He moved from engineer to liaison, from liaison to product lead. His badge changed colors. His emails grew shorter, more punctuated. The questions stopped. That was when my report started getting rerouted. At first, it was streamlining. Then came the rewording. System logs I'd built were copied into new slide decks stripped of my name. Code snippets I authored became teamwork. The architecture I wrote was now reviewed by product. I didn't confront him. I didn't have to. He knew. I sent one email, just one. Levi, based on the confirmed architecture contributions and implementation logs, I'm requesting co-inventor status on the Red Helix patent. See attached timestamps and version history. CT, I included 3 years of documentation. He never replied. Weeks later, I found out from someone in compliance that Levi had formally advised against it. His rationale role ambiguity, continuity risk, and unclear technical delineation. He used words I once taught him the meaning of against me. That night, I didn't speak. I didn't cry. I pulled out my oldest notebook, open to the first page where I'd once written "Stability first, ego last," and underlined it again. Then I picked up the phone and called someone who didn't work at Eroscene. Her name was Amelia Ree. Amelia Ree didn't blink when I explained the situation. She just asked for my version control logs, time-stamped code commits, and internal network metadata. Within a week, we had built a legal chain of authorship tighter than any external audit could unwind. It wasn't just documentation, it was a case. Amelia showed me how to make it unmissable without ever making it visible. We buried the declaration of sole inventorship inside a quarterly performance report titled Q4 Red Helix Benchmark Summary. It was 62 pages long. The key language sat in a subsection labeled Architecture Ownership Confidence Index, cross-referenced with build iteration logs. It was accurate, it was factual, it was deliberately unflagged. 2 weeks before my termination, I walked into a Tuesday operations review meeting. Brannick Heller had just returned from pitching our pipeline to a firm in Palo Alto. He was in a hurry, always was. I handed him the folder, printed color-tabbed, quietly lethal. He skimmed the first few pages, asked 0 questions, and signed the bottom of the last page with a pen that probably cost more than I made that week. Let's keep the engine moving, he muttered, handing it back. I nodded once. We will. I uploaded the signed file to the secure shell of the system that night. Fail-safe, read the document, validated the metadata, and armed the final trigger. It wouldn't act unless 3 things aligned. My credentials were revoked, my access terminated, and the signed declaration verified. 3 lines of logic, 1 irreversible result. That was the moment it became law. No fire alarms, no sirens, just a silent agreement notarized by his own indifference. I had watched Brannick rush signatures for months. I knew exactly how he moved, efficiently careless, too confident to read fine print, too proud to imagine anyone beneath him might write something he couldn't erase. By the time I left that building, everything was in place. All I had to do was wait for the moment they believed they'd won. And then I waited for 10:12 a.m. The first internal alert hit at 10:32 a.m. Ren Holt, the CTO, was the one who saw it, an automated system notice that looked like a routine filing ping. At first glance, USPTO filing confirmation, Red Helix architecture inventor, Dr. Celia Thorne status file timestamp. Verified. At first he thought it was a test message, a glitch. He refreshed the dashboard. Then he noticed the server logs. The Red Helix repositories had gone dark at precisely 10:12 a.m. Every log, every module, commit, every version branch gone. Not overwritten, not archived, purged. Secure deleted from root. He reran the query. Same result. A few doors down, Levi must have seen it at the same time. I pictured him blinking at his screen, rereading the name on the filing 3 times before it settled. I wondered how long it took before he remembered the email I'd sent him a month earlier. Levi, just a heads up, if Red Helix is ever disconnected from the wrong end system, purge protocols may engage. It's baked in. Be careful. CT, he'd flagged it low priority and forwarded it to IT. He thought I was bluffing. Now the servers were quiet. Red Helix had been built to respond to erasure the same way I had with precision. Not rage, not mess. Just removal. The failsafe didn't break anything. It simply withdrew everything that had ever passed through my hands. Irison hadn't just lost access. They'd lost provenance. The build trails were gone. The logs were gone. And the last remaining live architecture pointer, my personal hash key, was no longer valid in their network. By the time Ren began scrambling teams to access the redundant mirror servers, the results were the same. All 3 failed restores. All 3 pointed to the same time code, 10:12:08 a.m. The system hadn't crashed. It had executed exactly as it was told. And Levi, who once sat beside me mapping failover chains on napkins, was now pacing the operations center, trying to explain how code he once called elegant had vanished without leaving a single line behind. It started small, a grainy screenshot posted to a niche tech subreddit, just a timestamp comparison, my termination at 10:12 a.m. and the patent filing at 10:28 a.m. No commentary, no hashtags. Just facts. Within an hour, it had 1,000 upvotes. By noon, it was on the front page. The headline that caught fire wasn't mine, but I wish I'd written it. Aerosign fired their lead engineer. She took the patent with her. Tech bloggers pounced. Threads unraveled. People dug up press releases, LinkedIn announcements, even old team photos from launch day parties. My name wasn't in a single one of them. That became part of the story, too. Hashtags trended. Justice for Celia, We remember her name. Red Helix, Wuzzers. Then came the broadcast. CNBC aired a live interview with Brannick Heller, trying to contain it. He wore the same tailored suit from the quarterly report photo, smiled like he'd practiced in a mirror. "We've always supported Dr. Thorne," he said. "She was a valuable contributor to Red Helix. This development is unexpected." He didn't blink enough. He said contributor, not architect, not inventor, contributor. 10 minutes later, the audio leaked. I hadn't even known someone had saved it, but there it was, my own termination. Brannick's voice clear-clipped, emotionless. "Your role is redundant. Effective immediately. No gratitude, no acknowledgement, just disposal." Someone spliced the audio clip with footage from the CNBC interview. Side-by-side contradiction. It spread faster than the original headline. TikTok edits YouTube breakdowns, Twitter threads with timestamps and receipts. By 4 p.m., one of AeroSign's second-tier investors issued a public statement. "We are evaluating our involvement with AeroSign Technologies pending internal review." More followed. I didn't post anything. I didn't answer the dozen interview requests flooding my inbox. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. The truth was, doing what they had never let me do take up space. And somewhere inside that building, I knew Brannick was realizing that the thing he'd always underestimated wasn't the code or the protocol or even the patent. It was the silence. The offer arrived just after midnight, tucked inside a sanitized email wrapped in too much legal polish to disguise its desperation. "We recognize the strategic value of the Red Helix system," it read, "and propose a mutually beneficial acquisition of patent rights in exchange for a direct payment of $8,000 subject to a 3-year exclusivity clause and competitive non-engagement." I read it twice. Not for the number, it wasn't nearly enough, but for the arrogance embedded in its structure. A buyback with strings from the very people who had insisted I had nothing left to offer. The clause was designed to silence me again, to cage the very thing they once discarded. I closed the message, then opened a reply window. "Thank you for your offer. I've considered it. It's not for sale. Not to you. Dr. Celia Thorne." I hit send. No attachments. No explanation. The next morning, the real messages started to arrive. Aqualex Systems sent a brief but clear proposal. No acquisition, no dilution. They wanted me to lead deployment, not license it away. A CTO position with full control. No creative interference. No corporate varnish. Kendall Corps reached out next. They'd been trying to modernize their energy distribution algorithms for years. Red Helix would jump them 5 years forward. They offered technical independence and a development wing built around my specs. Arvin Dynamics came last defense, R&D, private surgical. They didn't speak in vision statements. They just said, "We've read your logs. We want the architect, not just the code." I didn't say yes. Not yet. But I didn't say no either. Each of them had done something AeroSign never bothered with. They asked. And more importantly, they didn't ask to own what I built. They asked where I wanted to take it. I stood at the kitchen counter, phone in hand, the city outside still dark and unbothered. Then I opened my calendar and scheduled 3 calls for the next day, one with each of them, 30 minutes each. The legacy I'd built was no longer theirs to contain. I didn't schedule an appointment. I didn't need clearance. I walked straight through the front doors of AeroSign HQ the next morning, wearing the same coat I had on the day they fired me. The receptionist blinked when she saw me but didn't say a word. No one did. Maybe they assumed I was back for a legal meeting. Maybe they didn't know what to do with someone who no longer needed permission. I took the West Corridor past the same framed slogans they used to recite in meetings. Innovation is ownership. Progress is shared. I almost laughed. The engineering wing had gone quieter since I left. I passed the bullpen, the unused espresso machine, the whiteboard still smudged with unread equations. No one looked up. The lab door was unlocked. Inside, everything was almost exactly as I remembered. The overhead lights still buzzed faintly. The window vents still rattled when the air kicked on. And on the far wall, the one they called the Wall of Honor, the stainless steel nameplates still lined up in neat rows. All except one, mine. The spot beneath Lead Systems Architect was blank, just 4 screw holes cleanly drilled, too precise to have been accidental. I stepped forward, reached into my coat pocket, and pulled out the nameplate they thought was gone. I had removed it myself the night they updated the org chart. Quietly, just like everything else I did. I aligned the corners, pressed it into place, and tightened each screw one by one. Click, 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 click. When I stepped back, it was there again. Dr. Celia Thorne, not new, not reinstalled, just returned. Then I reached into my other pocket and pulled out a small silver USB drive, brand new, completely empty, and laid it on the central workstation table. Beside it, I placed a folded slip of paper. On it, in my own handwriting, were 6 words. Next time, read what you sign. No one followed me as I walked out. The light outside had shifted. The sun hit the marble floors like it was clearing space for something new. The contracts were signed within 10 days. 3 different companies, 3 distinct industries, 1 shared condition. Any affiliation, direct or indirect, with Aerosign Technologies would void the agreement in full. Kendall Core, Aquilex Systems, and Arven Dynamics each reviewed the clause. One of their legal reps tried to soften it with language about neutrality and open market flexibility. I told them no, not because I was vindictive, but because I was done building bridges that only led back to fire. Each deal gave Red Helix a new frontier. Kendall Core used it to rebuild their fractured energy mesh system across 5 states. Aquilex deployed it into AI-driven freight logistics, smoother handoffs, fewer delays, smarter forecasting. Arven integrated it into live defense simulations, cutting reaction lag by 72%. I didn't own them. I empowered them. I didn't ask for control. I asked for clarity, and they gave it. And this time, every deployment carried my name. I kept the press at a distance. No interviews, no keynote speeches. But people noticed. Users started citing Red Helix logic architecture by C. Thorne in white papers and development blogs. The recognition arrived not in headlines, but in footnotes, and that was enough. Then on a Monday afternoon, a single press release dropped from Granite Partners Aerosign's largest investor. We no longer align with current leadership direction. Effective immediately, we are exiting our position in Aerosign Technologies. No elaboration, no apology, just a clean retreat. By that evening, their divestment had triggered a chain reaction. 2 more investors followed. Aerosign's board scrambled. The CEO's statement read like it had been written in a panic room. I read it once, then closed the tab. In my new office, floor-to-ceiling glass, east-facing, I watched the Red Helix deployment map light up in real time. A thread here, a circuit there. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Quiet, steady, unstoppable. No longer hidden, no longer theirs. I leaned back in my chair and let the silence settle in. You don't destroy your enemies. You outlive them.